Hello everyone, I am level 50 and I want to give you my general advice for what you can do to prepare for this level because I'm going to be honest, there is a pretty big difference, not only in terms of the amount of experience you need, but subsequently also just the raw resource requirements to fully ascend all your characters, to actually get enough value from that equilibrium bonus to make the grind worth it. If an individual who wants to prioritize it, I would say prioritize your first 4 team. Your primary expense will always be the ascension materials. You need 35 after, but you need 20 for each of these. And yeah, prior to equilibrium level 40 or equilibrium level 4, you get 3. So that's a lot of farming for your entire team. I primarily farmed up Yanxing.
Sometimes it takes a real man to become best girl.
And Zealand, my main DPSs. The character or Fire Trailblazer really gets theirs for free, so you don't have to worry about that. And I got Ting Yuna. That's it. My Bailu is still underleveled. I also did the same for light cones, at least for the main ones. Super in position 5, cruising in SLCs, and then Zeala's light cone. That's it. The rest are still in the air because I'm not finalized on their builds yet. I know these two aren't changing. For traces, being blunt, the cost associated with leveling up a trace is tremendously high. These are weekly boss materials, and as a result, I don't really recommend focusing on them too much. Don't get me wrong, they are a damage increase, but I feel like if you're an individual who wants to get more value for what you have, you should primarily focus on building out the rest of your team. Get your Tin Gun points up. Get your traces up for your Bailu or your Natasha. Then focus on these big ones. Because after level 6, like from 5, these are all fine and common. Level 6 requires these, which are much more rare to get. And because of that, if your other characters need them first, get those. Now, the cost associated with Ascension, as in the cost associated with actually bringing them up that additional level, is really high. Like if I'm looking at my Fire MC, I need a lot to get these up. And you don't necessarily get a big increase in terms of the calxes and the experience they drop. So if you have, hypothetically, let's say you have all the essential materials you need and you just want to know what to prioritize, please get the experience mats. I'd say that for the vast majority of you, you might have enough materials for the light cone itself to get up, but if you don't have the character experience materials, that's what's going to be a bottleneck for you because the credits, surprisingly enough, weren't the issue. I had about 3.1 million, and then to get all this up, I dropped maybe 600,000. That's not that bad. It is the experience that's a problem. Pre-40, everyone says relics are not worth farming because you only get 1. I'd say for my experience farming at equilibrium level 4, you get, it's like 1.5, just basically just to consider that because you get 1 to 2, and there's a 50-50 shot. It's not a guarantee, and yes, I understand that you have a higher chance of getting some good ones, but I spent like what, 9, 10 Trailblaze power, like as in the fuels on this, and I did not get a single 5-star crit, and that kind of sucks. Now, don't get me wrong, I got possibilities like this one with crit rating, crit damage. I got possibilities like, you know, this really good one on a set I didn't need, or this one here, and that's fine. But if you're an individual who really wants to know what to prioritize its ascension mats. If you are a pre-4 and if you can't get to level 50 yet, I feel like if you have everything else in check, if you have your ascension materials in check, if you have the trace materials in check, if you have everything else already done and you are comfortable with your account, you can farm relics because you're getting a guaranteed 1. In this one, you are farming potentially and waiting potentially for that chance of 2. And yes, that can add up if you're doing a bunch of farming, but realistically, it's not going to make much of a difference if you just get bad substats. I would prefer a 4-star piece that has really good substats than this 5-star piece with speed, because if I'm looking at it bluntly, I probably have a decent 4-star one with decent stats. Or, yeah, okay, well, no, but not. I don't have a good 4. You know what? Never mind. Ignore that. I just don't think that the hype when getting to 50 is worthwhile because there is such a high cost that really isn't in some way, shape, or form communicated to you. Because if I'm looking at, you know, the main differences here, you go from 5, which if we're actually being honest, you don't really need them up until 40. Okay, so you have 3, and then you have 7. That's 10. That's perfectly fine. You double that up to 20, and that's a big cost. Yes, you get that nice little 1 pull, but that's really not worth it. These you can farm out from Simulated Universe. You can farm them out from the world itself. I actually say do Simulated Universe. It's not that bad. Something else to note is if you are looking forward, or maybe you're thinking about grinding or, you know, using your gems to essentially refresh to reach that 50 cap, don't. Because your rewards in a Simulated Universe scale with your equilibrium level, I would actually say it is best do that later on. You may want to do it on the Sunday or Saturday before reset, but don't do it and grind it strictly for that if it's a Monday, if it's a Tuesday, if it's any day of the week, because you won't do that bonus immediately. So wait for it to reset, or wait right before reset and then do it. That's literally just it. Something else I was not prepared for, and I will fully admit this, is if you have a team, and let's actually go to my team setups. If you have a team, and this is usually the one I would run, either this or, replacing Yanqing for Zile, the damage difference is extremely high. Because most of us, at least in the early game, focus on the main damage dealers first, but getting their stats out, getting the light cone up, getting the traces up, and then relics if you got them, and if you farm them, your supports are a little bit shaky, I'm not gonna lie. If you already have a fully built support, cool. If you don't, you may want to check on them, because your biggest problem is your enemies will focus on them. I use Tingyun a lot, and she always dies. She's the first one to get hit, even though I have Bailu, even though I have Fire Trailblazer. With this light cone that increases the likelihood to be attacked, she's attacked a lot. And if you don't build up their relics, at least I'd say if you really just want to increase your survivability early game and you don't care about substats or main stats, just focus on getting a good piece, whatever set. You can use Musketeer if you really want to, with HP or defense, and just build that up, because the damage difference from 3 to 4 or 40 to 50 is really high, especially if you're looking into the Echoes of War. Now, on this note, do you get increased rewards from here? We all know about relics. These upgrades 4 drops, which is fine. These are just equal to your equilibrium level. That's fine. That's great, because it really does alleviate a lot of farming issues. I would say, personally, get one solid team. Like, hypothetically for me, Yanqing, Tingyun, Bailu, and then a Shielder, either March 7th or Fire MC. I get one team, know that I can clear this once I ascend, and then wait to farm these out once I hit Uki level 4, because that will save me 1 mat every time I do a run. And that does add up, because these are pretty expensive. If you're looking at Echoes of War, yeah, I did those. I still have another one. The damage difference, once again, I only did this one for destruction. That, it's there. It's noticeable. It's big. Just farm these at your own leisure, depending on what you need. You don't need to wait. I'd say yes, the drops increase, but if you really don't think you can clear it once you ascend, because you will only know once you can ascend, then just farm them out early. The biggest thing people make a big deal out of is these trace mats. And I think that relics are there, but trace mats themselves, getting these higher rarity ones, are a much bigger deal overall, because you need so many of the blue ones and so many of the purple ones. And I'll have this auto farm in the background. Yes, a lot of these do matter. And yes, a lot of these can be alleviated over time, but I feel like it is more important to properly prepare and actually know what you're getting yourself into first than to say relics are your priority, because they do make a difference. And once you reach that endgame point where your traces are built up, your characters are ascended, your buffers on your team like Tingyun or Bronya are fully built up, that is the only way you can increase damage. But at equilibrium level 4, and once you reach the 60s and the 70s, your biggest difference won't necessarily come from that, because the relics are a big portion of your damage, don't get me wrong, and the crit rate and crit damage is a pretty big deal, but if you cannot clear the content, if you cannot survive, if you don't have the mats, you won't be able to farm relics anyway. For me personally, I'm going to have to prioritize my Bailu and my light cones and really finalizing the builds I have right now, because relics don't give me enough to make it worthwhile. If it was every time you farm it, you got 2, maybe. If it was every time you farm it, you got 3, maybe. But the synthesizer doesn't guarantee you a good main stat unless you have the self-modeling resin. And the artifact farming, or relic farming in this instance, is a 50-50 shot. And I'm either spending 40 stamina that could have been spent elsewhere for these trace mats, or for boss mats, or for experience, on a potential of getting 2 possibly decent relics, or I could just farm guaranteed upgrades. If you are looking at 50, if you're looking at ascending, farm out the guaranteed upgrades, then do not worry about relics. Because as you can see here, I got one of these drops, which is worth 3 of these drops, which is worth, 9 of these drops. So that 9 of these drops. That does increase over time. And this does matter a lot, because as much as you farm these out, you don't want to be the person just to craft all of these into these and then synthesize those into these to just get 1 talent up. Ignoring that big rant, one big thing I want to point out is that once you get to these higher points up here, once you are looking into, ascending and unlocking these traits, these tracks of destiny are a point of contention, because yes, you get one from the shop, you do get one from Ascensions, you do get one from the actual shop in the world, and they are from events, at least it seems. If you're looking into using them, I'd say pick out the 8 characters you have, the 8 characters in your main teams who you swap around the most, and then just use them on those. Yes, some characters don't get as much value out of it, but if using a support like Tingyun and you really want to increase the value she's getting, the speed bonus is nice here, but that doesn't cost 1. You really only have to spend 1, because that second one isn't something you're getting into for a long time. I'd say don't worry about these. Yes, you will accumulate them over time, and yes, they are important and limited, but not limited enough to where you should look at your character's main ability and be like, is it worth it? Because most of the time it's worth it. And most of the time, these big bonus abilities do matter. But yes, the trace materials, I'd say trace materials first. Stagnant Shadow that you do have, those are secondary after you have your main team. If you have one strong main team that you think can work once you ascend, that's it. Don't farm Stagnant Shadows until after you ascend, just to get those additional 1 mat per run. Everything else, it's up to you. Once again, this is a game. Play how you want. I just want to give you some general advice that I think is helpful. Consider subscribing if you're interested. Join the Discord server. It will be linked down below, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.